Welcome back to the TRBusiness Adapt and Survive Skype video interview series, a platform that allows travel retail to share its stories and insight during this very, very difficult moment. Joining me for this episode is Sarah Branquinho. Sarah is the Duty Free World Council President. Sarah, thank you for speaking to us today, albeit in very difficult circumstances.
It's a pleasure. Good to talk to you, Luke, and hello to everybody out there who's no doubt also sitting in an isolated office.
Sarah, look, global travel retail is at the moment feeling the full economic tsunami of this crisis, but it's important amidst everything that's going on not to forget that this is a deeply human and personal struggle. So to begin, I'd like to ask you how you are coping personally with everything that's going on.
Okay, well, my father's in a nursing home for dementia care, and thankfully there's no sign of virus there as of yesterday, so that's one blessing to count. My mum is 91 and she lives with us, so Eric and I are doing all we need to shield her. And the next generation is spread across 3 different countries, which means we're doing a lot of FaceTime calls, but we have one unexpected pleasure. Our son and his fiancée got stranded at Heathrow on the way back when the UAE closed its borders. So they're home with us, never expected to have him home again for such a lovely long time. How am I coping personally? I'm very busy, both with the Duty Free World Council, but also in the local community where we've set up a service to support local residents. I can't go out to do the shopping or collect the prescriptions and so on, but I'm the finance lead and I've taken on a load of admin and back office work. We're lucky we've got a garden and Windsor Great Park's on our doorstep, so we're getting fresh air and exercise.
Okay. And obviously, Sarah, the industry has weathered a number of challenges over the years: SARS, MERS, swine flu. But I guess the contagiousness of this current virus means that there is always the threat that once restrictions on borders and flights and sort of social distancing are relaxed, it could resurface down the line. Is duty free and travel retail, in your view, best placed to deal with a long recovery? And do you think that's what it's going to take at this point?
Well, we've seen many examples of industry resilience, but we've never seen a shutdown on this scale before, of course. The figures being released by ACI and others show the depth of the impact, so I won't go into those now. But I don't think any industry can prepare for something like this. But what we are good at is being ready to trade the socks off in any market that gives us the opportunity to do that. So given that the shutdown has come in waves, reopenings are likely to follow a similar pattern. So companies who are geographically diverse will fare better probably than those with focus on a specific region. Unless, of course, that region happens to be one of the earliest to recover, and we're beginning to see some domestic flights starting again in China. But I think we're all learning as we go along.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so turning now to, I guess, some of the support measures that the industry is seeking. We know that the regional associations are urging governments and regulators to provide fiscal support. We know the ETRC has signed a letter to the European Commission alongside other air transport industry stakeholders. And APTRA has indeed used its economic impact report to persuade governments across a number of territories of the efficacy and the need for the industry to receive support. How is DFWC supporting other associations such as IAADFS, ASATIL, MEDFA and FDFA in a way that feeds into a global objective?
Okay. Well, as always, just because you're not reading in the trade media what the associations are doing, it doesn't mean we're not doing anything. Quite the opposite. We've worked extensively with ETRC and APTRA. We've been extremely engaged with ACI Europe as well. We've done a fantastic job. But all the associations are working with a clear, aligned agenda and an understanding of the main asks for the industry as a whole. So we're trying to keep that consistent whilst working in a way that suits each region. ASATIL have engaged with ACI for their region, and they've had a meeting to coordinate the approach to national governments. The FDFA is lobbying government for rent relief. We've heard from IADFS, as you know, it's trying to help its members get access to emergency funding. And of course, IADFS and TFWA are still busy resolving the fallout from the cancellation of their respective events in Orlando and Singapore. At global level, the Duty Free World Council, apart from supporting the different regions, is working with ACI World, the UNWTO, and using the same arguments to make sure that we get included in part of anything which might benefit the aviation, maritime and tourism sectors. The overriding focus is on conveying to governments, institutions and regulators that the duty-free industry is an integral part of both the aviation and the maritime sectors, so that we will be ready to start generating income as soon as those travel restrictions are relaxed. And the same, of course, applies to land borders where the industry operates. The tourism sector worldwide is devastated, and these businesses will be part and parcel of the tourism revival.
Okay, and it's very difficult to put a timescale on revival, but in terms of feeding into the global objective, is there, say, a particular aim that you'd like to achieve in the next, say, 6 weeks, unanimously across all the associations?
Well, in the next 6 weeks, we'd like to see some positive feedback from government. And just to give you one example, government seem to be focusing almost exclusively on the woes of the airlines and not thinking of the airports. And we, of course, are part mainly of the airport ecosystem. And the airports have got huge fixed costs. You could argue larger fixed costs than those of the airlines, and yet they're not getting the same airtime or the same focus from governments, despite all the fantastic work that ACI regionally and across the world is doing. And, you know, we are part of that system. So the more we can do to support ACI, the more we are likely to see come out of it.
So let's drill down into some of the campaigns you're working on at the moment. As we heard from Julie in the interview last week on behalf of ETRC, the hard work continues despite what we're going through. Now, the DFWC continues to campaign on a number of different issues, not least the campaign to defend duty-free against allegations of illicit trade in tobacco. And obviously that takes on particular resonance as we move forwards towards the November 2nd meeting of the Party of the Protocols. You launched a new campaign in January that we were very lucky to be privy to. Just bring us up to date on the sort of response that you've received to that campaign.
Well, we were getting tremendous buy-in for the campaign from retailers across the world. But unfortunately, of course, retailers at the moment have other things to occupy their minds. And so we're we're also finding it really difficult to get in contact directly with the governments and the institutions we need to speak with. So workshops and other engagement originally planned during the trade events has been shifted to virtual formats, and we're currently working towards an expanded series of webinars and online briefings in April and May. That is, if we can get through to the people we know that we need to speak to. We know that the WHO Secretariat continues to work towards a full series of meetings of the FCTC in November. Recently, they put out press statements detailing the measures that the staff have adopted to ensure the process isn't derailed by the current situation. I find that quite frankly astonishing. I would have thought the World Health Organization had more important things to focus on right now. But the onus remains on us as an industry to ensure that we're equally well prepared to meet the challenge head on and ensure our channel isn't unfairly attacked.
So I want to talk to you actually about something you mentioned there, a webinar series, and obviously the one particular event of late has been the evolution of the Duty Free World Council Academy to raise standards of education across the industry, and that's got a strong emphasis on sort of e-learning. So can you just talk to us a little bit about that side? Given the circumstances, has engaging with this now become more important than ever?
Well, the Academy got off to a really good start, and we had some major companies which tried the course, liked it, and were on the brink of committing to put some serious numbers of staff through the programme when the current crisis started. Training being part of the HR function, as you can imagine, companies are focusing all their team's efforts at the moment on supporting staff through this really difficult time. So education and training schemes are taking a bit of a back seat. I'm confident, though, that once we move on from where we are now, that we'll see significant take-up. After all, it's a flexible distance learning environment, and some of the most experienced learning and development executives in the business have given it a firm thumbs up. So it's just a matter of time.
Okay.
If I could just come back briefly, though, to tobacco and campaigns, as
Yeah.
something I forgot to mention. Whilst we're continuing to work on the illicit trade issue, we know now that later this year the World Health Organization will also consider the way new generation products are regulated in the domestic and the duty-free environment, and I think that's one we need to keep an eye on. And we're continuing to see new labelling rules for confectionery introduced in different countries, in particular in Latin America, and we're obviously working with Jose Luis Barras-Hill on that. So that's just another example of how business continues as usual.
Sure. Well, thanks for sharing those with us, Sarah. And I'm sure that is an ideal opportune moment now for stakeholders to actually rally around that and support the associations and DFWC moving forward. When the recovery comes, and assuming it will, what sort of changes do you think will come out of it for the industry? And do you think that there will be a fundamental pivot in the way that we all do business?
Oh, if only I had a crystal ball. I think that more companies will seek maximum geographical diversity. It's proved really helpful to companies over time anyway. And there's not all crises are on these scale. I think that will help. I think everybody will try to ensure they have the liquidity they need. Although for today's situation, it's truly unprecedented, and how you can have enough in a time like this is it's challenging. And that we have, all of us, an emergency mode to allow us to respond to a range of scenarios at regional and global level. I think perhaps we've always reacted off the cuff to things. People have risk registers, but how live they are in terms of the modelling that they have and plans that they can put into action straight away, I don't know. Maybe they do. I wouldn't be aware of it myself, but I think that's going to be a key issue.
Okay, wonderful. Is there a final message, Sarah, you'd like to share with the industry at this time?
Yeah, two, if I may. I think, firstly, the way that we connect with our customers, and perhaps we're not doing that right now. I don't know, it's difficult, but most of us have online, or most companies in the industry do have an online presence. The way we connect with our customers will have a major impact on customers' attitude once normality returns. I think customers are used to that now, so it's as true for our industry as others. And secondly, to remember that all stakeholders are facing the same challenge, and that when we come out the other side, we'll need each other then as much as we do now and as much as we always have done. I think sometimes we look at how we're all performing and we forget that we're part of a wider group, and we need to be aware of that.
Some very strong messages to finish there, Sarah. Sarah Branquinho, DFW World Council President, thank you very much for today.
At TRB. Bye.